Good evening, we're back. Let's talk about Subarus. So if you've got a Subaru or you're about to buy one or you're thinking about buying one, you're in the right place. If you've got a question about it, this is what this session is. It's questions and answers. You ask the questions, I'll do my very best to answer. So anything, modification, upgrades, tuning, mapping, what works, what doesn't work, what things are good for, what they're not good for, myths, anything Subaru related. Ask a question, put a big Q at the beginning of it, and hopefully I will pick it up and answer it during the course of the next half an hour to an hour, depending on how many questions I get. So I can see that we got a lot of people already on here. Thank you for that one, Lee. So yeah, Subaru, you know, we love them, we hate them, but we love them really. So yeah, ask your questions and I will do my best to answer. Normally there's a mad rush of questions towards the end, so if you get your questions in early, don't worry about whether you think someone else might ask the question or whether you think it might have been asked before. I know how difficult it is to go through these on the replay basis to see whether something's been asked before. I don't mind if it's been asked before. You know, I get the same questions or some repeat questions pretty much every week, so it doesn't matter to me. I will still answer them. So yeah, if you've not got a question, say hi, say where you're from, what you're driving. It's really interesting to see where people are in the world. It amazes me that you know, the reach of this is crazy all over the world. So right, I don't know whether we got any questions. We have. Right, I will come back to that in a second. And I'll come back to that in a second. I've had the last few weeks. It's been quite funny, really, with regards to customers coming in and apologising when they're bringing their cars for mapping because, you know, it's got a dump valve on. Oh, you hate dump valves, or it's you know, I'm sorry, it's a 2.5. You don't like 2.5s. I just wanted to kind of set the record straight on that. I've had dump valves on my Subarus. Don't mind them at all. If you like the sound, great. If they're a good quality one, they're not going to make it worse, but they'll never improve it. It's just the sound. You can't tune for it. It doesn't need mapping. So, you know, they're not a bad thing, but an awful lot of the running issues relating to Subarus are because people have fitted a dump valve and it's leaking, it's drawing in there, or it's not shutting quick enough. So hence why I say, you know, standard dump valve is the best because it works pretty much all the time, unless you're going silly high on the boost side of things. You know, they're very, very reliable. I think in the 20 years I've been mapping, I've probably only seen two that have been faulty in that whole time, and I'm busy. So yeah, dump valves. 2.5s, why don't you like a 2.5? I love a 2.5, but it has its limitations. You know, the 2.5 block, in my opinion, is inherently weak. The liners at the thinnest point are only 5mm thick, so when you start pushing big boost, big power through there, the liners distort, split, and you know, it's expensive to get a 2.5 up to the level that a closed deck block a proper closed air block would take. So I've been on that journey. I've done that journey. Tried to get big power on a 2.5. Drew the line at 600 because it was just too unreliable to go any further than that. So I like them. They're a great engine for the road. Good torque, good pickup. You can fit a bigger turbo and have a nice lazy car. Right, we've got loads of questions coming in. Oh, yeah, loads. Right. I'm going to pick this one first because, it is interesting. AI, it's a buzzword at the moment. It has its potential, and it has its potential from a tuning point of view. But I think more than that, it's going to get used more and more as far as ECUs in future cars, if we're allowed to have internal combustion engine cars, where you put in the basic parameters, where the best power is, what the most efficient fuel ratio is, and let the AI make decisions instantaneously based on NOx sensors, conditions, kind of like a much more advanced, much more feedback closed loop kind of setup, but for all of it, ignition timing and everything. I think that will happen. It's kind of heading that direction. You can feed data logs into it and ask AI for advice of what needs to be improved. But I think ultimately tuning isn't a just looking at the data. It's all about the feel as well. So I think it'd be difficult to actually get that to be 100%. But it will be interesting. Right. Right, Miguel. Right, is it possible to tune a car is it possible a tune can make the car burn oil? I did 1,800 kilometres on highway with link ECU and the level was full. After the trip it was more than half lower. After 2 months I did the same. In reverse with the original ECU, oil level stayed the same. Ooh. The driving style was the same, just cruising. I suppose it is possible if it was running a lot richer on the link ECU, but for just cruising, I would think it's unlikely. I'm not sure what you're experiencing there, but I don't think the ECU has got the potential to do that unless the tune is a long way out. Be interesting to see it sort of over a few occasions, see whether it actually repeated that. Right. Okay, Cameron. Can I open source tune my 2002 Subaru Forester that has an EJ20 single overhead cam and a JDM engine? Open source tune on that? You may well be able to. I don't know because it's not a car that I've sort of come across here in the UK. If it's a JDM, it will be a turbo engine car. NAs tend to be like UK spec cars, really low spec, and people don't tend to tune them. It's possible, but you'd need to kind of research whether the definitions are available to actually display the map that you may well be able to download, but you actually finding a way to visually see it, which is where the XML definitions come in. That's going to be the hard part. Bum, bum, bum. All right, hi Neil. Link ECU injection timing. Car was mapped with version 4 set up with 400 degrees before top dead center. Injection timing, but running V5 engine and link ECU is 360. I'm not sure that the V4 has got 400 degrees injection timing, but I'll take your word for it if you're telling me that, Neil. It doesn't make an awful lot of difference. If you experiment with those, with that 360, changing that to 420 or whatever, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. A lot less difference than you would think. Pretty much all of the early ones are 360. I think the Hawkeye or the dual AVCS cars are like 540. So it's a different timing altogether. But I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. Hey, can you simplify how the boost control works on the factory ECUs? Yeah, that's something I covered quite a long time ago. There was a live stream where I talked through how the boost control works with a 2-port, 3-port, what the restrictor peel does. So if you look back on some really early sort of live stream videos, you'll be able to see that information in there. Right, hi Sol. Things are good on your end? Good. I do have a sneaky suspicion the car is slowly dying. With that said, is it better to tear this down before it fails or rebuild and buy new? Oh God, that's a difficult question to answer really. It is unlikely that if an engine fails that it puts a rod up through the block and ruins everything. It does happen, as we know, but to give you an idea, we had a Forester XT turbo that I ran around in about 12, 13 years ago. Every time I started it, cold, and the bottom end knocked for about a second and then stopped. But that car, it just ran and ran and ran and ran and ran. And, you know, did maybe another 30,000 miles since that point. And still, you know, the engine never failed. The bodywork of the car rusted away before the engine failed. So, you know, if you're expecting to replace the engine because it's failing or you think it's failing, then there's a good chance that it's going to keep going for a long while. So personally, I would probably keep that until it's showing some proper signs like compression's down or there is the bottom end knock, and maybe prepare and build up an engine to actually have there ready to pop in if and when it does go. Village idiots. Could I explain the difference between base fuel map and learn map and how this plays on tuning? Can corrections be made from what I see from the learned map? God, there's on a Subaru. There's two different types of fuel learning. There's the short term, which is making instant changes, in which case you've got a range of plus 25% to minus 25%. So it'll take feedback from the lambda sensor on the headers and work out whether it needs to take out fuel or add fuel to get it up to 14.7 AFR. So that's your instant corrections, your short-term fuel trim. If it has to do corrections in a certain range, and the range of the MAF scale is broken down into sort of grams per second sort of ranges. If it has to do corrections at a particular point quite often, then it'll learn that and it'll add fuel in there. So you think that's great, but what it does do at the end of that closed loop area, which is just up until you start putting your foot down on the throttle, or up to 4,000 RPM, it will, whatever it's learnt in that last range, it will carry forward and say, oh, I've needed to take out 10% of fuel at that point. It must be that I need to take out 10% of fuel going upwards. So that is an issue, because if it's been mapped or set up in a particular way to run a certain air fuel ratio and you're taking out 10% of fuel, it's going to run a lot leaner than what it should be. So the learned, you want to ideally get that down to 1 or 2% as far as what corrections it's making long term, and particularly that last area that it will carry forward into the open loop side of things. It can give you an indication as to whether you've got an air leak, whether you've not scaled the MAF correctly, if you've changed to an induction kit, or whether there's some other issues going on. So you can look at all that information, but the idea is to keep the learned as low as possible. Also, with my experience and all, can you please explain how to open a dyno business as a total beginner? I'm trying to work my way to that. I don't own a dyno business. I travel around the country using other people's dynos. They've invested a lot of money to buy the dyno, put it into a room, soundproof the room, get good extraction in there. So the investment on the actual soundproof booth, to have good air coming into it and a really good way of getting the exhaust gases out. Invest in that. It is expensive. And depending on where you are in the world, the return might not be quick enough. It needs to be used a lot to actually make it worthwhile. Right. What's the safest? Right. What's the safest torque brake horsepower you would say the CVT can handle? Yeah. Safe torque and brake horsepower figures are always a bit strange, really, because people break gearboxes with standard power. People take gearboxes way beyond standard power and still don't have an issue. So it's a difficult one. The CVT isn't particularly strong. I know people are running sort of 350-ish on them and don't seem to have many issues, but I think it's not a gearbox for running high horsepower on. It's a gearbox for smooth progress, really, rather than sporty progress. Right, okay. Damien, hi. I'm pretty sure fairly sure my VF28 is on its way out. Really noisy, starting to lose boost. Found a good part worn. Is there anything else other than gaskets you'd change? No, not really. If it's a good part worn one, they are becoming harder to find, because obviously it's like a 27-year-old turbo now, so good second-hand ones are pretty hard to find. But yeah, just like gaskets top and bottom on the turbo, or top and or back and bottom, and you should be good to go. Obviously check around the wastegate to make sure that it hasn't got too big of a crack there. There is always the potential that it'll have a crack there, but if it's just a little minor one, then it doesn't normally cause an issue. But if your 28 is getting noisy, then yeah, it's a good chance it's on its way. They can be rebuilt and put hybrid internals into them. I know Fastline do that here in the UK. I don't know whereabouts you are, Damien, but if you're in the UK, then Fastline can put hybrid core in that and actually make them like a brand new turbo again, but with more potential power. Okay. Yeah, I haven't looked at that. I've never needed to change that. But yeah, the difference between the two of them on your setup, you would not notice. And Val, if you're an Academy member on the YouTube, so if you've signed up for the Academy membership, not just the supporter, then on the community page on YouTube, you can you'll be able to see the link for Discord, so you'll be able to click on the link there and get in. Have I tuned Evos before? Yes, I have. Prefer Subarus by a long way. Cruise AFR 15 or so, full throttle or 11.5, but for high power cars. Yeah, what load the AFR needs to start dropping heavily towards the wide open throttle AFRs. Generally, as soon as you start going on to boost, then you should be blending that down towards the target 11.5, 11.4. Evos can take a slightly leaner route or sort of leaner mixture than a Subaru. But if you kind of blend it down, so like a 1 bar of boost, maybe at 12 and a bit to 1, 1.5 bar of boost at 11.5, 2 bar of boost, maybe 11.1, and do it that way. But the Evos, I think there's a lean spool up part of the Evo map that also needs to be looked at. I don't know what it is on that particular Tefra mod, but sometimes they benefit from running a little bit leaner to help with the spool. It's always an estimate. I always do it on the conservative side. If you're tuning it yourself, there's no prices for braking engines, but always try and be as safe as possible when you're doing it. So yeah, if it means at half a bar you're bringing it down, but if you're blending it down, you'll be able to tell if you're using deck cans to see what the engine's happy with. Right, timing drop is usually required between 99, 97 and 95. On an Evo, they don't need much ignition timing as standard, so probably not the same. I haven't mapped Evos on 95 RON fuel. On a Subaru, for example, on a normal sort of Subaru, there'd be about a 5 or 6 degrees difference ignition timing between 99 RON or 93 in America and 95 RON in the UK or 89 in America. So about a 6 degrees in there. So 97 kind of split it in the middle, about 3 degrees of ignition timing difference as a general rule. So if I was doing a guesstimate map that was going to be okay-ish for 95 RON, I'd generally take 6 degrees of ignition out on on full load and kind of blend that difference back to like 0 atmospheric pressure. Um, 2004 Subaru Forester XT. Anything you would say to look out for? Rust in the rear wheel arch tops around the strut tops is probably a very good thing to look for. Best to kind of get your hand up into the wheel arch, see whether there's any holes there or any really soft metal. They're very, very prone to rusting there, and behind the rear seats you can see it at that point if it's really bad. Aside from that, the suspension, brakes, wheel bearings, the underside of the car is where they'll start to suffer if it's a UK car. Right, I think I'm up to date with questions. Right. Okay, I got asked earlier on about 2-litre closed deck blocks and whether a 95 STI should have a closed deck block in it. Yeah, it should, but it's going to be 30 years old. So is that any stronger than a decent non-closed deck block? Who knows? The weakness on the early engines is the rods and the rod bolts in particular. So is an EJ20 closed deck block that's never been opened any stronger than a EJ20 that's never been opened that isn't a closed deck? I don't know. It's a 30-year-old engine. If you're planning on pushing a 30-year-old engine upwards of 300, 350, then prepare for an engine build. Be aware that you're pushing something that is quite old into an area that it hasn't been used to doing. It could go badly wrong. You don't know what the life of an engine has been for one of the previous God knows how many owners. So yeah, just because it is closed deck doesn't mean it's any stronger. Yes, the casings would be stronger if you stripped it down and put some like a nitrided crank and proper rods and pistons and proper shells in there. Yes, it makes a very good base then. Dream big. Hello, Callan. Hello, mate. Coming up on timing, what do you think about the RCM water pump and timing stuff? The standard cam belt, timing gear and pulleys, I've never had a problem with those personally, and never had a problem with standard water pump. I can understand that people want to buy uprated ones, but my motto with my cars has been, if it breaks, upgrade it. But if it hasn't broken, then the standard part is obviously good enough. And the Time Attack car, the 850 horsepower car, that was running standard water pump, standard idlers, standard bottom pulleys. The top pulleys were obviously vernier because it had Kelford cams in that, but the rest of it was just standard tensioner, standard standard idlers. They were all standard. So when I think about them, I'm sure they're very good, very nice bearings, very nice bits, but are they needed? Don't know. Yeah, so I'll be taking your engine out tomorrow, so we'll have a full breakdown of what was done or what happened. Right, okay, Cameron. I should have known you were in America with the truck picture, but I'm sorry, I didn't. In the Colorado mountains, 2004 Fister XT, looking, has no rust, but has a cob. Wonder if you could remove the cob and tune it. Yeah, you just need to unpair the cob, and it puts it back to a standard setup as far as I'm aware, which you can then get in on open source software, using ECU Flash or ECU Edit, with a Tactrix cable, or with assuming the final part of my testing of the fake Tactrix cable goes well, then there will be an alternative for that. But yeah, you'll be able to get into it with open source software. Hi Joe, how you doing, mate? Got the email. Sorry I didn't get back to you yesterday, but I'm on it, and I'll get it over to you in the morning. Right. Okay, so where are we on here? Yeah, just to give you an update on the Tactrix copy that I've been testing. Tested it on CAN bus cars, works for reading, writing and data logging on ECU Edit, works for reading and writing on ECU Flash, and the Legacy GT, so a 512 kilobyte file, that worked fine for ECU Edit, and yeah, I've just got a test on ECU Flash using the latest version of ECU Flash to make sure that it isn't bricking the ECU or the actual Tactrix copy. But hopefully things go well on that. I'm going to do that tomorrow on a car that I know that I've got a spare ECU for, basically. So yeah, should be good. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I'll give you an update on that. Jordan, hi Jordan, impressive Terzo. Okay, there can't be many of those left on the road. Wanted to make a nice 280 brake horsepower. Is this doable with an Apex Power C? And what are the supporting mods? You should be able to do pretty much that with the standard setup with an exhaust. It's going to be very close as far as power potential with the TD04 and the top mount. Front mount, and you definitely get there. Standard turbos probably about 270 to 280 horsepower. Maybe a 3-port would be a good option. I don't know what you've got on there for boost control, because the Pexi is not particularly good at boost control. But you should be doable without too much difference on the spec. Is pole position still the furthest north? You're visiting at the moment, mate? Yes, at the moment. Trying to look at some other options a bit further up. When was the last time you were mapping a car and it surprised you with this brake horsepower over your expectations? How often does this happen? It doesn't happen a lot, to be perfectly honest. Most often, I can pretty much judge where it's going to get to. I'll always, when I'm speaking to a customer, I'll always try and err on the side of the easiest option to actually hit the target. So, if I think it will do 340, 350, then I'll say I'll be around the 330. And that way, when it makes above 330, they're delighted. So, quite often, it doesn't happen that often that I'm really surprised. did a Legacy GT yesterday with a VF400. That was just on a replacement engine, an EJ257 in that. The customer apologised, it was a 2.5, but it was good. And that, a bar of boost on the VF400 made 368 horsepower, which was great for just the bar of boost. Boom, boom. Cylinder 4 cooling mod. I've never felt the need to put one on a car. I can't say anything else other than that. Never needed to and never will. I've taken a couple off cars where they had issues with bleeding coolant systems or sort of heaters running cold, but yeah, I wouldn't put one on personally. So, how many Terzos are still on the road? Blimey, not many. Getting rarer and rarer. So am I, said. So am I. Hopefully it'll be a really good day, bit of chill out time on the dyno. People can have a little play with their cars on the dyno. I'll sit with them and give them some advice or guidance. Right, does it matter which LM2 I buy? You don't really need the EGT probe. That's if you were going to fit this permanently in your car. I probably wouldn't do that unless you're adamant on using that method to tune for mixture and what have you. But yeah, just the LM2. I can't remember what version it is, but if to actually run it on the back of the car with an exhaust probe, you need the longer cable because the standard cable is about 2 foot too short. So the longer cable, which is about 8 foot too long, but it's better to have too much than too little. And yeah, proper Bosch sensors. There is an awful lot of really poor quality Bosch sensors around at the moment. I've had 2 fail within basically a few hours of use, which was really annoying, really painful, and an expensive waste of money. So yeah, buy the Bosch sensors from a good source. Do you know what size rear subframe mounts run a 95 GC8? Wanted to order them before I pull it out. No, I'm afraid I don't know that off the top of my head, Gary. Sorry. What's your opinion on these cars running 700 brake horsepower on pump fuel, 850 on funny fuel? Once in a blue moon runs or constant full throttle. Seems many tuners are doing it now. Yeah, but some people get lured by the big power figures. Personally, I think the ideal figure for Subarus is around 350 for a classic and sort of up to about 450 for a new age. You go much beyond that, then the car starts being unreliable and quite annoying in a lot of ways. So doing 700 horsepower on pump fuel is a lot. Particularly when pump fuel can vary quite a lot, so a bit risky. Depends on the ECU as to what knock control and everything, but it's a little bit risky. But quite often these cars are project cars that don't get used an awful lot. I know, some people do use them, but very rarely at full throttle. They just really start annoying you at that sort of horsepower. Right, how are we doing? Or am I going to finish this session early? Yeah, the horsepower targets, like big power cars, tend to be long-term projects, and the real problem with long-term projects is that people forget the fun of the Subaru, and they start then concentrating on the money and how much it's cost them, and problems and how long it's been off the road. And as soon as you start to forget the fun, then the project just becomes a bit of a pain in the backside. So some people see it through to the end, but quite often these project cars are sold quite shortly afterwards. No, I think it's a lot longer than 8 foot. The standard kit is. The 8 foot one is just 2 foot too short. So you need the extra length that will go from like the windscreen mount to the back of the car. The 8 foot one doesn't reach. Any model Subaru, any variant, what would you choose in standard form? RAR, easy. Hawkeye RAR, done. Wouldn't do anything to it. Maybe change the exhaust, and obviously put a map on it, and yeah, track day it to death. Have I got a diagram for the vacuum pipes routing on a 99 2000? Yes, but not with me. I've got that in the workshop. If you want to give us a call in or email me, then I might be able to find it in the manual. I've got all the manuals for the cars with those sort of bits in it, so I might be able to take a picture of it for you. But there's not a lot of vacuum pipes. It's not like a twin turbo Legacy where it's just a world of pain. Don't ever take the vacuum pipes off those, they're horrific. Right. Okay, I think the questions are coming to an end, so unless there's any questions that pop up between now and the next 10 seconds, I will be closing this session down. Thank you for watching, thank you for asking, thank you for listening or just following on chat, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.